was this rather important development in artificial intelligence, the unveiling of GPT-3, which is the product of Open AI Labs, which is in part Elon Musk's venture. And, not being a tech guy, I'll just sort of give my top line understanding of it, but the implications for how we live is really the conversation. GPT-3 basically allows computers to operate with words the same way they've operated with numbers for a long time, with images for about the past decade. And I think a good example of what we're talking about with the artificial intelligence and the GPT-3 development is autofill, performing autofill.
Okay.
But it's so much bigger than that. Can basically allows artificial intelligence to write stories. It can do what...
And they do term papers for the children.
Well, okay. Well, there's just sort of one practical question application, but this is really interesting and perhaps potentially highlight some pitfalls too, some concerns that should be raised and addressed as this technology continues to develop and continues to supplant human activity, complement human activity. Where are those lines between complementing and supplanting? Prompts a lot of questions. And so there's a new book out on the topic of AI, sort of the history of it to present, and I think it raises some questions about the future and the implications of these technological innovations. The book is Genius Makers, the Mavericks Who Brought AI to Google, Facebook, and the World. Genius Makers. The author is technology correspondent with the New York Times, Cade Metz, who joins us now. Cade, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. You say you're not a tech person. I thought you explained that perfectly.
Well,
he is perfect.
I do have reading comp skills, but if you scratch below the surface in this area, then I'm going to be lost. But talk to us then about give us any historical context you want. But GPT-3, this latest development in AI, and what some of the implications and perhaps some of the concerns people should consider.
Well, it's interesting. Again, you talk about reading comp skills, right? Reading comprehension. And that's one of the things that GPT-3 is bringing to machines, right? You and I know how to read a news story and then summarize it, right? It's just second nature to us. One of the things that GPT-3 is allowing machines to do is do that very thing, right? Take information, take an article on Wikipedia and summarize it for the user. And we're already starting to see that bear fruit on, say, the Google search engine. It's getting better at understanding what you want and give it to you. But you're right, the bigger implication is that this system can generate its own language. It can generate tweets. It can write poetry. It can write entire news articles. You can say, give me a speech in the voice of Donald Trump, and it can do it. And it's not perfect. Let me add that. If you ask it for 10 speeches in the voice of Donald Trump, it'll give you 5 that are breathtakingly on point. I mean, the English is perfect. The punctuation is perfect. You can hear the person's voice even. But the other 5 are not good, let's say. And so there's still a gap between what it can do and what scientists hope it can do. But it's pretty impressive. And the implications, as I hope anyone could see from that, are enormous.
And so with respect to the 5 and 5, that's interesting, what it can do and what it can't do and where scientists want it to go. Develop that a little bit more. Is this still an effort to have GPT-3 be pass the Turing test with respect to language?
Exactly. One of the big goals here is what they call chatbots, right? A system that can carry on a turn-by-turn conversation like you and I are having now, right? Again, this is second nature to us to talk about things, to understand and respond. Machines traditionally have not been good at that. But that's always been one of the big goals of the tech industry. You're right, the Turing test, dating back decades, scientists have wanted to build machines that could essentially talk. And we're getting to that point. GPT-3, the way it works is it learns from human conversation. It learns from conversations you and I have had on the internet. And it learns the patterns that define those conversations, and it's able to imitate that pretty well. And, for several turns, have a conversation. It breaks down a bit after those several turns, but it's far more advanced than what we've had before.
So then one of the things we can do is I can outsource all my fights on Twitter and Facebook to AI. I don't have to do the typing anymore.
Exactly, right. And so there are positives and there are negatives, right? The other concern here is that this system can generate disinformation, right? And it allows machines to generate falsities and then spread them, and that can be a concern in the long run. But there are positives as well.
All right, are AI machines racist?
Well, they can be, right? As I said, this system learns from us, right? It literally learns from months of training in analyzing thousands of books, hundreds of Wikipedia articles, all sorts of other content from the internet. So that's how it learns to piece language together. There is racism on the internet. There is hate speech, other toxic language. And so the machine is going to pick up those patterns too. And so there are cases where it will spew racist language and other hate speech. And that's one of the things that we don't know how to deal with at the moment.
So, and Amy was referencing this piece in the New York Times that you penned, who is making sure the AI machines aren't racist, and you go through some examples of individuals who worked in AI, worked at Google, a former grad student at Stanford is a prominent example, and some of the issues they raise. But it's this piece, and I'm not saying you're limiting it to this, but it's limited to race. There are other things that AI could potentially do to restrict the parameters of debate that people should consider too. I mean, you can also have people of different races that have the same political philosophy deciding that we're going to eliminate anybody who doesn't subscribe to our political philosophy or marginalize them the best we can with AI and machine learning.
You're right. There are lots of issues to discuss here. We've discussed several here. Biased disinformation. The other issue is the weaponization of this technology in other fields, and there are debates on all sides of this. Right, there are heated debates, like a lot of issues that we're dealing with as a society, and you get strong stances on all sides, and there's concern that the stakeholders, the people who control the technology, will have a larger effect on the way it behaves than those who don't have a say in how it's built.
And so, I mean, this gets into sort of, sci-fi ruminations too. I mean, is this something where people should be concerned about sort of the rise of the machines, Terminator 6 kind of thing, or is some of the concerns about machines displacing human beings, whether it's with respect to intellectual work product or with respect to labor, are those misplaced?
Well, I think it's more complicated than it seems at times. We're at this moment where the technology is getting better, and in some cases, it can do work that humans did in the past. But there's not an acceleration of that to the point where we can really see it displacing a lot of jobs, in the economic numbers. So that's not really happening yet, and it's hard to see where that's going to happen. Right, the history of labor is that we slowly have jobs replaced, right? And sometimes you get events where a lot of jobs are replaced and a lot of people, are pushed out of their work. That hasn't happened yet, and it's hard to see where that's going to happen soon. But in the long term, that is a real concern because these ideas are, they're the types of ideas, because they learn, they're getting better at at a pretty impressive rate. When you have systems that can learn on their own, that means they can improve at a much faster rate than otherwise.
And is this, did you see sort of that gap that you mentioned at the beginning? Is that a gap that will be overcome in the relatively near future, or is this something that you really still have some structural issues with the development of this technology?
It's an open debate at the moment. Like the people building this technology, you talk about OpenAI, that's a lab that believes that they're going to get there, that they're going to close that gap. Their stated aim is to build a machine that can do anything the human brain can do. They call it AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, and that's where they believe they're headed. There are a lot of experts who think that talk is overblown, and they're more skeptical.
But the track record
is a big question.
Yeah, but the track record seems to be. I mean, this is outperforming Moore's law with respect to transistors on a microchip at present.
Yeah, in a sense, the acceleration of this of the development of this technology is something that a lot of people did not see coming. Right, it's just been over the past 10 years. This one basic mathematical idea started to work, and it has accelerated advances in image recognition and speech recognition. We see that in our daily lives. You know, when a service like Facebook can recognize the faces in our photos, or Siri can recognize what we say, and now that same mathematical idea is really accelerating this to a point that a lot of people are shocked. It's shocking to use GPT-3.
What about in terms of application and concern with respect to law enforcement? I mean, are we moving towards Minority Report, pre-crime?
Well, the type of pre-crime thing that you're talking about, these sorts of algorithms that work in these other areas don't necessarily work that well in those sorts of areas, predicting the future, so to speak. But that's something that people also are working on, and that is a concern long term.
He is Cade Metz, technology correspondent with the New York Times. The book, Genius Makers, The Mavericks Who Brought AI to Google, Facebook, and the World. Cade, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Hi, I'm Dave Nissen, CEO and President of Mueller CPA. The recent past has challenged us all from many perspectives. Our focus has been first on protecting our employees and second on making sure our clients are properly listened to and served during this economically challenging time. Our attention has been on assisting hundreds of clients and business colleagues in applying for PPP loans under the CARES Act. We are not done. We know that businesses need help with not only loan forgiveness application assistance, but also with PPP allowable expense record keeping, cash flow forecasting, expense reduction, budgeting, and more. If you find yourself needing guidance, even if we were not involved originally helping you acquire these funds, contact us. Our team is experienced, committed, and here to help. Call me directly at 630-524-5274 or check us out on the website at MuellerCPA.com. That's MuellerCPA.com.
All right, want to get your energy level up? Sick of drinking coffee in the afternoon to try and stay awake? Well, why don't you try balance?